Cities are always the physical manifestation of the big forces at play. Economic forces, social forces, environmental forces.
These are some shots from the 2011 documentary Urbanized. It's the final chapter in Gary Hustwitz's design trilogy, and it's gorgeous. But it's not all gleaming buildings and impressive walkways. This documentary isn't afraid to show off where urban design falls short and who it impacts. Because urban design has been and continues to be an increasingly global challenge that we're all involved in. In terms of format, this documentary won't bring you anything new. It has all the standard components of an informative film. It's got B-roll, anecdotal interviews, on-site tours with experts, and the occasional motion graphic to illustrate stats. In fact, the way these components are presented kind of date itself as a product of the early 2010s. But this doesn't detract from the viewing experience or the central message. Through a series of case studies on different cities, Urbanized walks us through the triumphs and pitfalls of modern urban design. We see the failure to accommodate slums in Mumbai, the introduction of new social housing projects in Santiago, and the growth of suburban sprawl in Phoenix, among others. We're granted insights and perspectives from architects and activists alike, ranging from pessimistic, optimistic, to indignant as well. There's a decent amount of knowledge imbued within this film, yet despite its clear structure, Urbanized is kinda messy. From what I could gather, the key takeaway here is that urban design benefits from listening before acting. In Brasilia, the designers pat themselves on the back for creating a beautiful city from the bird's eye view, but never stopped to consider what it'd be like to actually walk on the ground. An old set of train tracks in New York City was about to be demolished as an eyesore, until civic input saw the potential for a walkway. These case studies all deal with issues that are centered around the acknowledgement of public needs, or the lack of it. The fate of a city depends on how well it is willing to listen to its people and change accordingly. It's an important message that empowers citizens to speak up and has the potential to create real change in their communities. Yet it's easily lost in the solutions already made or the tragedy is too great. There's little input from actual inhabitants of these cities. Activists and architects only make up a fraction of the voices in a community. Lacking focus isn't the only shortcoming of this documentary either. Maybe Urbanized is just dated, or I'm just being too critical, but I'm disappointed there's no discussion on gentrification or hostile design. This film explores the effects of urban design or the lack of it, but it never discusses when urban design is specifically used for harm or exclusion. It touches on decreasing crime rate by improving the safety of public spaces, but it never touches on accessibility for the disabled. It doesn't acknowledge male bias in design and how women are adversely affected by it. Yes, Urbanized stresses the need to consider current and future civic input, but it does little else. In the end, Urbanized is a broad film about a broad topic. It's an introductory look into urban design practices and effects. It's meant for people who have very little knowledge on the subject and the structures around them. What this film does is introduce design thinking and consideration. I think it could lead to conversation starters about the environments we've made for ourselves. In this regard, I think it's a good watch for those unfamiliar with design. As for other GBDA students, this film serves to reinforce the consequences of design and the importance of communication. So I still think it's a worthwhile watch when you have the time. Urbanized, like all of the documentaries, is about empathy, where we are with and without it.